Okay, welcome back everyone to the press conference. We're starting with a very tight summary of what we're talking about here right now, which is includes really two phases. I'm just going to call it the on ramp or on ramps because there's multiple on ramps, and then there's the thing at this, and then there's the on ramp to what? It's kind of a big thing, and then within that big thing, I'm going to call it the hyper object of collective intelligence. There's this kind of special forces node within there called collective superintelligence and its application to saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth within a very short time frame, which is where we're at right now. For me, that's the main game in town. It's not the only game in town. Why is it not the only game in town? Because there's this whole on-ramp part to a bigger hyper object, which contains the special forces spiral, right? Um, And if we don't have an on-ramp, then it's only whoever's here right now, and there's darn few of us, even including the multiple communities that are working on the it. So the on-ramp is very important. The larger hyperobject is crucial because the on-ramp isn't right to the special forces node, it's to the larger hyperobject. So it's kind of, I'm sort of thinking of it like in a three-phase on-ramp to hyperobject. Within the hyperobject, you those of us, those who are ready, those who are game, can get to that special forces node, singularity, if you will, where we're talking about this very powerful spiral for spiraling toward the solution and its implementation. Okay. So without further ado, let me start with kind of a fresh drawing. I've got a messy drawing of the spiral, but let me start with a fresh simplified version. And let me screen share here. Which I can do now. Okay, screen sharing. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So again, as I was saying, so here's the hyper object, right? Here's the special forces spiral within it, which is where I'm saying this is the main stuff. And then there's all these on ramps to it. Okay, so that anyone for anyone out the goal with the on-ramps is for anyone out there, no matter where they're coming from, what their deal is, or even what their woundings, etc. There's an on-ramp for you. Come into the hyperobject. There's all these safe spaces that you can engage and learn and grow and develop. And as you learn and develop, there's different pathways to what I'm calling the main game in town, which may not even be apparent for many of these on-ramps, perhaps not even apparent for most of the on-ramps. But for those who get there, this main game in town, which I'm going to highlight in green, this is really big stuff. Okay, so let me demystify that. Let me talk about, I need a tight name for it, but I'm just going to go with what I'm talking about, the Special Forces Spiral. Why not? Right? Okay. Why? Because it requires, you kind of need to be in the special forces. Everyone's welcome to join the special forces, but it takes some training, right? And it takes, some development and some readiness on your part. As Simon was commenting earlier, or maybe it was Eric, you have to want, I think it was Simon, you have to want to be in the game. You have to want to get there. And to want to get there, you have to know what the it is to want. There has to be an it to want that you can conceptualize in your own mind and own heart to say, I want that, right? Okay. And it's a spiral for the following. Okay, let me do a simplified version of this spiral. But first, the general idea of the spiral is you're going to start here. We're going to start here. We're going to do it together. And we're going to take a complete pass and come back to the beginning. And the beginning is really this dashed line, because when we come back to it again, we're going to know it in a different way. Thank you, T.S. Eliot. Then we're going to take the same journey again, but we're going to go a bit deeper and come back to the beginning to know the place, not necessarily for the first time, but differently. And then we can take yet another spiral and come back to the same place to know it differently. And then another spiral, and see each of these journeys is different and yet the same at the same time. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to project all these multiple colored sequential spirals into one big circle, and let's look at the different places on that circle. Okay, so where do we start, right? I think the logical place to start is basically where we are right now, giving an overview of, the game of the spiral, right? And the overview. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Let's go deeper than you are here. There's this thing called collective superintelligence, which we're going to go a lot deeper into over time. Um, but right now, let me just go down here for these different little sections and mini descriptions. Collective superintelligence, very conceptually, there's a platform. Some people get thrown off by this word. It's not a platform like Facebook or Spotify or anything like that. It's very distributed with lots of parts, and all the parts are optional, and it's kind of like the internet, but a way more powerful internet. On top of this platform, and I draw it kind of offset a bit, and I'll get to that over time, not necessarily right away, but there's this strategy that's supported by the platform. And we'll talk more about strategy as we go. And then surrounding and supporting all of this is community, right? Okay. So now let's continue. All right. So I've talked about strategy. That sounds kind of interesting. So let's talk about strategy, right? Well, before we do that, let's talk first about this platform thing. I think that might make more sense. It'll give a bit of a foundation for it. So it's a platform precisely for collective super intelligence, CSI. It's a platform for CSI. What's the basic idea here? The basic idea is there's this whole network of conversations. We're in a conversation right now. We are now very connected to, I'll show it like a double bond, to another conversation, which is the Kiko Lab conversation, right? This one I'm just going to call TPC for the press conference. And there's many others. And, there's different levels of connectivity or not. Some are relatively isolated. Some are just like right in the middle of it all with strong bonds to many others, right? And so on and so on and so on. So there's this network of conversations spanning all these different topics, all of which matter. And part of the platform that's essential and is now under development is what I'm calling the universal calendar. Other people call it different things. And one thing that's crucial to this is it is distributed, decentralized, right, on a blockchain, right? Decentralized, distributed, et cetera, et cetera. But it's basically a calendar that shows where all these meetings are, when they're happening, what they're about. Do you need an invitation to join them? If so, can you apply for an invitation? What's the on-ramp basically to these conversations? What are the social norms, right? I'm just kind of rattling things off. We're just doing a quick first pass on the spiral. We'll get deeper as we go, okay? So just hang in there, and if you have questions, either ask them or write them down, or get frustrated from doing neither. That's up to you. Um, okay, so if that's the platform, so the idea is through this network of conversations where it's highly mobile, people can jump around. I'm not advocating for open spaces or please erase from your mind any previous notions of what a network of conversations should look like or what you think I'm talking about. I'm just talking about a bunch of conversations happening essentially in parallel, but at different days of the week, at different times of the week, et cetera, et cetera. And the universal calendar simply exposes all this so that you know what's going on and you have some sort of an on ramp. Either it's open to everyone and you just show up, or you have to apply. And that's all being sorted out by multiple groups, actually. There's a lot of folks who are thinking about the same thing. You know how, like, certain innovations appear in different places at the same time. That's kind of what's going on here. But the basic idea is this network of conversations essentially forms this giant planetary distributed brain. Think of, by analogy, each of these conversations being like a neuron inside your own head. Right now, that neuron is just, either fires or it doesn't. Okay. Conversations are like a really vastly more sophisticated form of firing, right? It's a multi-dimensional, multi-topical, multi-cranium firing that spits out all kinds of great memory in the form of video recording, in the form of transcription. Those transcripts can be indexed and searched and all that. And, beyond the universal calendar, one key aspect of the platform is, a search engine. I'll start with an index. It starts with an index and engine, right? So you can search for stuff. A higher evolution on top of that. These are all layers, right? Um, the universal calendar is like the repository, right? A repository enables search. Once there's search and an index and all that good stuff, that enables bots. And you can have personalized bots, a bot that gets to know you, right? Personalized bot. So, for example, um, recently there was a person in the meeting here who just really wasn't fitting in this conversation because of their issues. Let's just say, let's oversimplify it and say because of their issues. Well, if that person had a personalized bot that could say, listen, you're really not ready for this conversation yet, let's go to the healing center. And there's lots of conversations going on there where you can get some healing and undergo some personal development and growth that will help you get ready for this conversation. Anyway, back to the spiral. I'm intentionally making this very brief and indeed cursory as we work our way around the circle, and then we can go deeper. So we've talked about the platform. Now, I've talked about how this platform supports a strategy. So let's talk strategy for a minute, right? The best strategy I've seen is one that I've helped develop. So I'm certainly not being objective here, but that strategy, I'm calling it, uh, instead of the V for vendetta, let's call it the V for reconciliation strategy. But the V represents two rows of dominoes, okay, both of which have a common origin, a common first domino. You trip that first domino over, and it gets two trains of dominoes going, right? And these two trains of dominoes, one is for people, for humanity specifically, and the other one is for the planet as a whole. And of course, humanity is part of the planet. Okay. And the common domino that gets them both started is food for all that's plant-based so that we can end animal agriculture, the wholesale destruction of the Amazon and other ecosystems, et cetera, et cetera. Um, on the humanity specific side, this gets this whole train of dominoes going, where beyond food, we have shelter, healthcare, community, and the kind of resources I was talking about, healing and therapy and all that good stuff, right? Games and play, well, that's really part of community, and access to nature and transportation so that you can get there efficiently, even if you don't have your own helicopter, all these good things, right? Basically taking care of humanity's needs. We have needs. Right now, we're in this whole scarcity model where the rich get richer and the poor starve to death, and the rich feel great in a very sick way for participating in all that. It makes them feel powerful, and it's just super sick. So, what this train of dominoes does, among many other things, is it, and I'm going to put this as the next step of the spiral that we'll discuss in a moment when we get to it, but that's the liberation of humanity. This is key, absolutely key. Okay. But we'll get to that in a second. I'm still talking strategy. So, yes, well, liberation of humanity, healing of humanity. Yes, people eating good, immune boosting, full spectrum nutrition, plant based foods is a very healing thing. That's a very good thing. All these dominoes contribute to humanity's healing and liberation and other good things. Basically, humanity is now happy, right? Humanity now has, right? This isn't the world's greatest artwork, but humanity now has her oxygen mask on, right? So she can breathe metaphorically, right? What do they tell you in the airplanes? Put your own oxygen mask on first. So, in a sequential way, there's a certain logic to focusing on this first, which is part of why we focus on food first. That's the most essential human need, food and water, even before shelter, et cetera, et cetera. And so part of the logic here is as humanity heals and is liberated, she will then finally be able to turn her attention to another very important passenger sitting next to them on the plane, right? Which also needs an oxygen mask. It turns out it's a woman, and it turns out it's our mother, humanity's mother. It's Mother Earth, right? So then we can finally help Mother Earth put on her oxygen mask, but only once we've got our own on. Okay, but really the two happen in parallel, but food can happen in an instant. I mean, in a week, we could have everyone fed, literally, ongoingly. Um, there's a lot of stories to the contrary and why that would be a bad thing and why we shouldn't do that. And it's all a bunch of bull crap, complete omnicidal, evil bull crap, period. And I'm happy to debate that with anyone. Liberation of humanity, I've already talked about that. Healing Mother Earth, let's talk about that, right? For a moment. This is absolutely crucial. No livable planet, no living humanity. The next domino here, beyond ending animal agriculture, from a planetary perspective, the big news is that we end animal agriculture and end the decimation of the biosphere, right? All that's contained in this one domino, feeding people and stopping the decimation of the biosphere by human hands. That's all there in that one first domino. The next domino for Mother Earth is SRM, cooling the planet through solar radiation management. That's the next biggie. And with these first two dominoes on the Mother Earth planet as a whole train of dominoes, those are the biggies. With that, we cover, I don't know, 95% of what we need to do. 95%. Woo! Huge progress. And it's so simple, right? It's so simple, right? Two things we need to focus on. I'm going to stop screen share so we can look at each other for a second. I kind of want to tell a joke and stop recording, but I'm going to hold my fire because there's ladies in the room. We'll get to jokes later. But there's two things we need to focus on: feeding everyone and erecting vast arrays of mirrors to cool the planet. With that, we save life on Earth. We save ourselves. Food isn't the only thing that humans need to save ourselves, but it's the first and most important, and it'll get the other dominoes tumbling. You see what I'm saying? Once we're feeding everyone and our hearts open up and our minds open up, and we say, wow, it's possible to take care of everyone in very efficient ways. Thank you, Sister Ivy, for your pioneering work therein. Logically, we're going to want to provide shelter for everyone and backgammon boards and massage centers and healing different things of different kinds, meditation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's time for us to chill out, eat, sleep, and chill out. And yes, everyone deserves that. Okay. Um, so back to the spiral. What's next? What's next? Okay, well, if this is all so great, right? A logical question is, where do we start? Right? And I maintain there are multiple answers to that question. One is right here, jump into the spiral, right? But also, we need to, you know, where to start. We need to zoom out a little bit back to this original picture that I'm talking about that precedes all of that. Well, we need to think about it in kind of its three main phases, right? One, two, three. One, the on ramp phase, right? This whole part. How do we get people in, right? Two, the hyperobject before the spiral. And three, the spiral. So we need to kind of simultaneously think about all three of these levels, right? As a whole system. Okay. So I'm just going to put very simply where to start. See above. One, two, three. But we need to think of it as a whole, right? Okay. What's next? Well, what's next is, in addition to thinking about it as a whole and talking about it as a whole, right? We need to really focus on the basics, universal calendar. This needs support. And this is going to be on the spiral until it's done. Once it's done, we might even pop it out of the spiral and say, hey, check, done, right? And now let's continue to focus on what's next and what's next and what's next, right? Something is always the most urgent thing until it gets resolved, and then there's a next most urgent thing. If the house is on fire, the first most urgent thing is put out the fire. What's next? Make sure everyone's okay. What's next? Rebuild the house. What's next? Teach kids not to play with matches so that they don't start the next fire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, the current kind of most urgent thing includes the universal calendar, right? I would also say the press conference is pretty darn urgent because that addresses an on ramp, a major on ramp. This on ramp that I'm talking about here, a major portion of this, right? Um, can be addressed with the press conference. Not all of it. There's, different on ramps for different folks. But TPC, the press conference, I think is a huge one to getting people in and also creating open houses where people can join. Um, I'll just put here open houses. Okay. All right. So we got the press conference. We've got open houses. I also believe, just like we talked about, the very first domino, feed everyone. Right? I'm kind of running out of room here, so I'm going to just put a big arrow that says go down, go down, go down. Whoa. Infinite scroll. Good stuff. Go down. Okay. And I'm just going to continue adding pieces here. So, where do we last leave off? Food, I think. Let me just make sure. Yep, feed everyone, leading to here. It's better that we have this coming from here. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Thanks for your listening. I really appreciate it. So food, we were like, feed everyone. And then what comes after that? Well, after that, topic-wise on the spiral, I would say is, as Eric mentioned, reflection, learning, feedback, etc. Right? And then here, I'm trying to get this to bend around. So I'll just, because the spiral is now going this way. And I would say another key thing is an openness to new and different, right? So even within this spiral that's trying to be well defined, there needs to be an openness to new and different, a space that says, okay, we forgot hey, you forgot about this, or, have you thought about it this way? So let's do that. Let's have a space for that, right? And beyond that, I'm also suggesting a key portion of the spiral is have a place for play and relaxation, a place and a time, right? Where we stop being so serious, chill out, etc. And anyway, this is as far as I've gotten in my thinking. There's probably other essential parts of it. But in the end, when we get done with this one leg of the spiral, we get back to where we started from, which is, as I wrote up here, or down here, you are here. Come back to the beginning, right? Right. Okay. Anyway, this is a little messy, and I'm sorry about that. I'm sure on the next iteration, I'll have it more cleaned up. I just got to map it out better. But let's do a quick review. You are here. Collective superintelligence, which has a platform, strategy, and community. Let's talk about the platform. Let's talk about the strategy. One crucial thing that comes out of the strategy is the liberation of humanity, the healing of humanity, the healing of Mother Earth. Wow, this is great. Where do we start? We need a universal calendar. We need on-ramps, press conference. We need places to go once you've on-ramped, open houses. And within that, there needs to be a particular focus on feeding everyone. Otherwise, what have we learned if we're still here talking with everyone, but people are starving and we're okay with that? No. And we can do this in a way that's self-perpetuating. A space and a time for reflection and learning. I see you got your hand up, Marco. Space and time for openness to new and different, play and relaxation, chill out, take a weekend off, and then back to Monday morning, you are here. Marco, go for it. You're on mute and you may be eating, and it's all okay. Just let us know what.
No, I'm sorry. I thought I unmuted. No, I think one thing that you mentioned that's key and will be key to our success is that we've always been, as long as I've been here, while we have a goal and an idea on how to get there, is we're open to new ideas always. And we've taken those tangents off and explored them. Wasn't right, get back on course, move ahead, but always being open. That's going to be key to how we succeed.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. More comments, more questions, feedback, etc.
Um, on ramps, describe 3 or 4 different on ramps you might think would actually be real specific on ramps.
Very good. So the first one is the press conference, right? And the nature of that on-ramp is basically, hey, if you have something you'd like to talk about, something you'd like to present, and a recurring conversation that you'd like to introduce and invite the world to, come to the press conference, present either for 2 minutes or 5 minutes. We'll have two different sizes of slot, right? And included in your short presentation is an invitation to the recurring weekly open house on that topic, right? So that's an on-ramp, right? And if you haven't seen video excerpts from the press conference we did on November 19th on thepressconference.org, thepressconference.org, please check it out. It's really good stuff. Please check it out. That's an example of an on-ramp among many others. So that's one example. You asked for 3 or 4. Another on-ramp could be, for example, some of the Kiko Lab is another on-ramp. They have a weekly Monday meeting. That's another on-ramp. Another is the block party. That's another on-ramp, right?
Another would be your regular emails that we're free to share with others.
That's right. That's another on-ramp. Hey, I just got an email in my inbox. Let me check it out. Oh, this looks interesting. And there's some videos there, right? YouTube is another on-ramp. There's myriad YouTube videos on all these different topics that we're talking about, published by lots of different people, and so on and so forth. So on-ramps galore. A, does that answer your question? And B, what do you see? What are you hearing? What's next, Alan?
Yeah, that's Kiko Labs. Is that the closest we have at this point to what you've described as platform?
Yes, that's the closest, and for the simple reason that A, they're in fundamental agreement with this whole paradigm and the spiral and all that. We may disagree on certain details, but they're all about a universal calendar, a network of conversations, and recording, transcription, etc. So really getting the most out of these conversations and facilitating people finding the right conversation. So they're a really great on-ramp or set of on-ramps to the hyperobject,
Spoke
of
with
which this special forces spiral is what I'm suggesting is currently the most elevated state they're in. Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
Marco and Christopher a couple of days ago talking about democratic sort of approach to things. Obviously, it's much more appealing with a sort of idea of everyone having a voice and being able to nominate ideas and have them voted up to the top to be sort of voted as a project we worked on and everything else. But we also considered that the really negative side of that reality is there's an awful lot of people who probably vote for a load of rubbish. People don't actually know what they really want sometimes, and it's like, is democracy always a good idea? It's probably not always a good idea. Do the people really know what they want and where they want to go? Which is why you really need to nominate leaders, like people who've really put a lot of thought into eco-friendly, world-saving ideas. They've put a lot of thought into it, and nominate them to sort of nominate big ideas that can be voted on, because you get I don't know. It depends on the people that come in first and that are in the group first. You might get voting on building a satellite to contact the aliens to get them to come and help us or something. I don't know what people would actually want. I mean, I'm not saying that's what they would do, but there are some dangers. I do have a sort of very positive approach about it. I've always thought it would be the best way forward. But it does occur to me that there could be reasons why we don't do it that way as well. Well, what was it? Dennis, Christopher Dennis, yeah, he said, like when the mob rule takes over and they go out and they grab someone and lynch them and they're nailing them up to a tree to burn them alive. It's like that's where a sort of little central government comes in and says, no, 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 we don't do that way anymore. So there are sort of certain with mob rule can be a bad thing sometimes.
Yeah, you said a lot there. What I'm going to focus on is this. First, I want to welcome my sister Kate. Welcome, Kate, sister. Welcome back. Great to see you. Hope all is well. Um, is in terms of leadership and nominating leaders who are qualified and who really have great ideas versus people with crappy ideas and all that. For me, the heart of this conversation is centralization versus decentralization. Are we going to let anyone and everyone, you know, create a conversation and lead that conversation, however imperfect? There's a difference between being imperfect, not the best idea in town, and not even being in the ballpark. So I'm defining the ballpark as saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. And within that, for my taste, there should be massive flexibility and massive space for anyone and everyone to set up shop and have an open house and speak for 2 minutes at a press conference, right? And that's part of creating these gazillion on-ramps, is having a gazillion open houses where people can find where they want to be in this broader network of conversations. And people can then go from conversation to conversation, from open house to open house. They can attend as many press conferences as they want to learn about all the different stuff that's out there and that's happening. And within all that, there's this very important idea of social norms, right? So if somebody comes into a conversation and they're just full of hot air and full of themselves and full of their story and their victimhood and whatever they're dealing with, we had a person on recently who really just wasn't a fit for the conversation we were having, and they kind of selected themselves out. But there are ways, just like there's ways of attracting the right people to the right conversation, there are ways of filtering out the wrong people from the right conversation, right? And so my bottom line where I'm netting out with all of this is that there is a way for all these myriad different conversations to coexist, and for people to find whatever conversations they want to be in without disrupting or disturbing the important work of other conversations where they don't belong. With that, I'm going to pass the talking feather. Love to hear from you, Alan, if you feel like I've addressed what you were talking about, or if there's anything missing. Happy to circle back and address it with you whenever it's good. Going on mute.
Well, I did have something positive to say, but I can't even think of any way of saying it without, first of all, sounding a bit negative. I've seen the same um, whiteboard display show several times, and it's a bit repetitive. And the same for me. I don't know if other people would feel that way on their first visit coming in, if they might enjoy it the first time, but is there some way of creating that as a finished, fixed? I mean, obviously you record it and put it on YouTube, but an entry point of here's a presentation of that that's on video. You can maybe even do it with proper coloured and painted pictures with proper images and everything, instead of just drawing it and make this whole really attractive presentation. And when someone comes in for the first time, and if it's maybe in the middle of the night, for example, and it's just me, nobody else there, say, well, what's this place about? Oh, watch this video, um, sort of thing. But yeah, so rather than have to sit through that lots of time. Obviously, there's, as you say, with the spiral, there's a lot of things you do have to go over, and there is things you do have to repeat. It's necessary, it's needed, um, it's reminders and all sorts of reasons. Um, but I don't know. But I feel we need, or I need anyway. I don't know how everyone else feels about it, but I feel I need something. Give me something to do.
Yeah, totally. So, did you see last night's email, the one I sent about 12 hours ago?
I've just got that.
Okay. In that is a recording that Marco, Christopher, Miranda, and I made, and feel free to play that in the middle of the night if somebody shows up. And this current recording that we're doing right now is another pass at it. I feel like these different iterations through the main thesis, which for me is getting clearer and clearer. Today's meeting is for me a leap forward from last night's recording. And and there's a certain practice makes perfect element to it. So I feel like we've got the video I sent out last night. Second of all, we've got this video that we're recording right now, which I'm going to take a moment to index so that we can have it ready to show. And then, we've got this growing inventory of content. So I think we're there, and B, we're increasingly getting there, better and better. Because the idea is obviously not to just keep repeating the same thing over and over, but get it tight, get it recorded, have it available for everyone, and then build from there, build on top of that. And feel free to jump back in, Alan. Meanwhile, Marco has his hand up. Go for it, Marco.
Yeah, I hear what Alan's saying, and I understand Alan, and I know I meant to work more with you on that subject. I understand that you're not as comfortable as the rest of us, or some of them that have been here longer. I think it'll come with time of just jumping in and being excited and being able to explain what goes on here and why we exist. And you're right. We could make a couple more and videos that are maybe more key to helping, explain everything in a nutshell. We can drill down on a couple and have them available for people who are, yeah. I'm not being very articulate here either, but at this point, but I think I know what you're saying, and yeah, that's something we can work on. But I also find the value in Jamin coming in over and over again, going through these drawings and different things. They're similar sometimes for us, but they're all, every time it's a little bit different, and there's a little more of the synergy of the group asking questions and answering that comes into play, and everything is getting tighter and tighter. That's the process of the collective intelligence as I see it. But yeah, please, Alan, never hold back on a question or what you think might be a criticism, because that's what makes us stronger.
It's more of a frustration, because every time I hear Jamie say these things, I get more and more excited about actually getting on to actually happening, and then discussing it in more detail. And other times, yeah, but when we're going to be actually doing it, what do I need to do to actually make it happen? And where the focus on sending emails to which type of people, or in Facebook groups, or is there some sort of plan or method that works best, or is there something? Should I be inviting people all the time? Because I mean, I've heard at one point I heard said you don't want too many people coming in all at once, but I don't know. It's like how big's too big? I mean, how many is too many? I think I've invited about 4 people that have actually showed up in the past. So, but is that more than that, or how much effort put into that approach?
Good stuff. Good stuff. Jimena, go ahead.
Well, I think this is a game of patience, first of all. And we've been here 8 months already. I haven't felt that any single second that I've been here, I've been spreading it. On the contrary, I feel so proactive and so into changing the situations and understanding how everything is kind of colliding, joining together. And so Roland is here, like a whole system transformation takes 3 years. We are just like at the beginning of something that it's like a drawing, and you are seeing like something that is coming out, and each time it has more parts, and you're discovering, you're understanding. Some things are added, sometimes some things are subtracted according to this patience game, because every beautiful thing in life takes patience and takes time. And I think that on my behalf, being part of this, it's like so important, because somehow this is a time of not thinking of continuous results, but understanding that each proposal that we are giving, each contribution, whatever it is, you, Alan, being here already, taking part of this, whoever is like spending his time, his effort, his resources, whatever they may be, it's like this is a time for playing not safe. And I understand where you're coming from, of let's do something like keep me busy, right? But at the same time, we need to be patient and have this space of giving us space also for understanding what we are building here, because it's not an easy project. It's a lot of things to take into consideration, and it's a big deal. So big deals take time, and a whole system transformation takes 3 years. That's what I wanted to say. It's like we need to be patient. We need to go with the pace of everyone, and also push us all together, because that's what we're doing here.
Beautiful, Jimena. Beautiful. I totally agree. I'm loving this whole conversation, this kind of meta conversation, right? And it takes time. We're designing a Levolution, right? And it's not like designing a new toothpick. Hey, we've got the shape. It fits good, nice between my teeth, and it's scraping the stuff out. Now let's mass produce it. Done. That could take an hour, right? This is taking a while. It's just the nature of the beast. Marco has his hand up. Thanks for the heart, Kate, and then followed by Alan. Go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, absolutely love that you're passionate, Alan, and that's, we need that. And a certain amount of impatience is always good too. So, I mean, absolutely, patience is good, a virtue, and what we need. Jamin's been doing this full time for 7 years. I've been in like 8 months with Jimena, and we've made a lot of progress in the time we've been here. And it's so encouraging when I go back and review some of the stuff from the beginning to where we are now. It's just awesome. And these last 8 months have been just, I mean, some great innovation has happened, and we've got boots on the ground now. We've got people in Los Angeles actually feeding people. It's happening. We have had for some time in Arizona, where Silas is located. We've been feeding the indigenous elders, and perhaps have saved them through COVID, because they reached out, and we were able to start with just the traditional food pantry box type thing, and now it's developed to the actual this nutritious plant-based food being prepared at the Ishkan temple and going to the indigenous elders there. You have to start somewhere. And we don't know, if you miss a particular meeting, you didn't know that we're actually feeding people this plant-based stew being made and delivered to the indigenous elders in Arizona. It's got to start somewhere. And Los Angeles is looks like it's got, I mean, it's it's got so much potential, and hopefully will be the big kickstart to the feeding and getting this stew out. So yeah, there's things happening, and if you have any suggestion at all for something that we don't know everybody's talents off the bat. So if you've got talents, maybe write your talents down and say, I can do this, this, and this, and then let's look again at a task that we can give to you, or maybe you'll help us develop that task that needs to be done. We're totally open to any and all ideas. Yeah, and with that, I'm complete for now.
Apart from Jamin's letter, is there anything like a website that records events that have been accomplished, like a newspaper type thing, or like reports on this happened and then this happened, or is there anything like that, or is that something that we're working on creating, or um, I don't know if it would be a website, or but being an actual accomplishments, like things that have happened, like food healers have done this and have moved this far forward, and like news reports kind of thing. Is there anything like that? That wasn't actually the question I was going to ask when I put my hand up. It came to that when you were speaking, Marco. The actual question I was going to ask was, would it be more important to invite individuals or leaders of groups and communities, because you can move more that way, the leader being able to gather information and go back and post to his whole group or his whole email list or whatever he's in charge of. Which is why, I mean, Russell Brand, with that 15 minutes I'm going to get in a chat with him. That's why I think it would be good getting Jamin in there, inviting him to maybe come along and show face in here at some point even. Yeah, Russell's, for the last few weeks, he's been organising a community through Zoom. I think he got the idea. He's been talking about it for years, but he was talking about an actual physical community getting together somewhere on land. But now he's, with the COVID and all the Zoom calls, he's actually doing it because it's much easier to organise with Zoom calls. And last couple of weeks he's been free.
I'm going to jump in real quick to answer part of that, and then go to Sir Roland, who has his hand up. We're each and every one of us is empowered to invite anyone and everyone. That's that short answer to that question. And Sir Roland, please.
So Roland, you got your hand up, and I saw you just turned off your camera, so you might be busy with something else. But feel free to jump in when you're ready, Sir Roland.
Which one of Kiko Labs? I mean, I noticed I went to their website, but they had several platforms that they linked to. What was it? What's that one? Telegram and various other platforms that you use. Have they got one? The one that they've actually got, is there sort of a way of registering, logging in, being a member on that, or chatting on their actual website, or is there another one they've got for that? Or
So they meet every Monday, and let me. They've encouraged us not to invite everyone to that meeting. I'm going to make sure you're invited to that meeting, Alan, every Monday at noon Pacific time. And we meet for several hours over there on Monday. And it's phenomenally productive. And that's what I'm talking about with cells are coming together now. Going on mute.
Okay, am I on now? Yes. Okay. First of all, I make what? I disturb everything. Now I'm going to disturb you all a little bit. First of all, I don't believe in using the word criticism. I heard it. Number two, this is following Humana's comment. I want Jamin to do a whole system transformation, but he won't. Phase 1 of year 1 of 3 is for him to get together and choose 5 or 6 key leaders of this site. And one of them has to be an internal change agent that will be trained to help and support Jamin to work the whole system. Number one. So Jamin doesn't want to do that. Fine. Then you're not doing whole system transformation. Fine. I don't care. I'm not here for that reason. Human and I have a hidden agenda. So I would like to see some of the rest of you support Jamin in that idea. Okay. What I think needs to have the conversation needs to be, it needs to be what's going best. What can go better? Okay, I gotta go. Somebody's at my door. All right.
All right. No, good stuff. Good stuff. I'm going to take a break. I need to take a little family break here. They need me now. So I'm going to pause recording, but everyone here, feel free to carry on. Marco, please text me or call me if there's something hot. And